Hey, my name is Kim. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are breaking down the final episode of Yellow Jackets Season 2 called Storytelling. This one was nuts. So it opened up with the group bringing back Javises? Wow. Javi, I want to say Javi and Travis at the same time. Anyway, Javi's body on the stick like a freaking deer carcass. And poor Travis is just like, at first he's excited to see Nat, and then when he sees Javi, he just breaks down. He's cradling his brother, and it's just like a devastating scene. Meanwhile, in the adult timeline, Shauna suggests a hunt like they used to do, rather than taking the drinks. Yeah, the Russian roulette drinks, whatever. So she suggests a hunt to try and stall them for time. Lottie enthusiastically agrees to it. Back to the teen timeline. Lottie wakes up. She's looking a lot better than she was last episode. Like, it's kind of crazy. Maybe Javi's death spared her, like with the whole wilderness sacrifice thing. I don't know. I'm still team, like, psychological over supernatural, but, I don't know. We're seeing things the way the kids are seeing them in the wilderness, right? So, yeah. Maybe she appears to be better off to them now that they've made the Javi sacrifice. But anyways, it's pretty clear that Misty has totally misinterpreted Lottie's wishes here. Lottie is absolutely shocked and devastated about what they've done to Javi and that they drew cards in the first place and they were hunting Nat. This is not at all what she wanted. Number one, kind of mind blown at how manipulative Misty is, because after this conversation with Lottie, she goes out to the rest of the group and she's like, "Oh, Lottie's pleased with the wilderness's choice and everything's all good." Like, no, she's not. She's horrified. But Misty is like using the hold that Lottie has over the rest of the group to control the group herself. It's pretty crazy, but also not. Like, we knew Misty was manipulative from the beginning of the series. Number two, it really blows me away how different Lottie is from what I expected her to be at the end of season 1. Like, remember, we found out that she was still alive as an adult because Nat gets a phone call from her banker friend, and she's like, "What did you get me into? I'm being followed. Who the F is Lottie Matthews?" And so I thought she was going to be this evil, like, cult leader and, like, hunting people down and murdering them and stuff. And I thought that's how things were going to turn out over the course of season 2. But in this episode, we really see that that is not the case. Lottie has been, Lottie... It has been, like, mentally tortured by the group, and she is who she is because of them, as Van says near the end of the episode. Oh, poor Shauna. I felt horrible for her having to carve up Javi all by herself, and Van is just, like, stone cold about it. Like, she is, like, repressing all of her emotions, and she is only interested in survival. She comes over, Shauna's in tears, like, having trouble getting started with carving him up. Or butchering him. And Van just comes over and she puts her hands on his head, and I thought it was going to be a moment of tenderness, like saying goodbye and thank you, whatever, to Javi. But no, she's just like, ding, moves his head to the side so that his jugular is exposed so that Shauna can make a clean cut. Like, Van, I am so curious to see where her character is going to go next season, because wow, she has changed so much from season 1. She was like the caretaker through season 1 and season 2. And now, like, oof, she is just a survivalist, and she is ruthless. I found it interesting that Shauna covered her face before she got started. I think maybe this is where they, this inspired them to wear masks during the hunt. Like, sort of started with Doom coming, I guess. But, like, they cover it up so that they can be anonymous and, like, a part of the pack. And to kind of separate themselves from what they're doing a little bit, if possible. Also, Travis, like, he says goodbye to Javi, and at first he says no, but then they're like, "No, we're going to do this," and he's like, "Okay." And I think, number one, he realizes he can't stop them. There's how many girls against him? And also, I think that he really believes in this wilderness stuff, which is so weird, because in season 1, Natalie said Travis never believed in any of this shit. Like, he's so different than what I expected him to be like. in season 1. But there, of course, we know, Natalie's not necessarily a reliable narrator. She has a spotty memory. I don't know. It's just odd how different he ended up being this season. So Walter shows up at the compound to help Misty with everything going on. He's got some kind of master plan. Everyone is making masks for the hunt. Shauna's dulling knives, which I didn't realize you could dull knives to that point, but yeah, okay, that's what she's doing. Van seems to believe the wilderness is real, and she can feel it just like Lottie can, which is interesting to me. Shauna makes a comment a little later on that none of it was real, right? And it was just them. And then Lottie says, is there a difference? Which I found, I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I found that line so interesting. Is there a difference whether it was supernatural or not? What do we make of that? Like, I feel like Lottie is saying that they'll never be the same after what happened. And it doesn't really matter whether it was a supernatural force controlling them or whether it was their trauma. They are changed people, and things are not going to get better for them unless they act on whatever they feel they need to do to rid themselves of this trauma. Van makes a comment that they all swore to protect each other, which is interesting because in the first season they had all lost touch for many years, like pretty much ever since Shauna and Jeff's wedding. So where does the whole protecting each other come into play? Maybe they were protecting each other by staying away from each other. Could be the case. Jeff and Callie are considering running away, changing their names. Jeff is really upset that he can't order his favorite takeout if they do that. He can't Google himself anymore, which he doesn't do, but he would like to have the option to do so. Callie finds the gun that Jeff has been hiding, and we realize that Matt and Kevin have been following them. They don't realize this, but they are literally right behind them. But, Jeff, Callie, Shauna, they're all bumbling criminals, and they have no idea that they're being tailed. Lisa and Nat have a scene. Nat tries to warn her to leave the compound because something bad's going to happen tonight. And she makes a comment to Lisa saying, forgiveness is a nice idea. Thanks for trying to teach that to me. It makes me feel like, as people recovering from trauma, addicts, all that, the biggest lesson that Lisa was trying to teach Nat was how to forgive herself for what she did. And I don't think she knows all of the details, but she knows she has a past. She knows Lottie has a past. And she was trying to teach Nat to forgive herself. Nat is just never going to forgive herself for what she did out in the wilderness. She has such a strong moral compass. It's just never going to happen. Coach Ben comes walking back to the cabin, and he sees Shauna butchering something, and at first he looks happy, and you can tell he thinks like, wow, oh, they caught like a deer or something, they shot a deer, and then he takes a closer look and he realizes it's a human, and the look on his face changes from excitement to absolute horror. And you can just imagine this, like, walking in on this kind of scene. It is something out of a horror movie. It is brutal. It is so over the top, grisly, horrific. But I feel like it was important for them to show us all of this because we need to see how far gone the girls are at this point, and we know it's going to get worse based on the pilot. He runs into Natalie, who's collecting firewood. He tries to convince her to come with him. He's like, you're not like these other girls. And she says, no, I'm worse. I let Javi die in my place. He cries. He's like crying. It's a brutal scene. Van and Travis have a conversation, and Van, again, just like dead inside. She's so brutal, and she's ruthlessly willing to stay alive at all costs. And she says exactly that to Travis. She says, don't let a sacrifice be for nothing. Let him keep you alive. And again, it reminds me of like some of the logic that the Andy survivors used, like, let your loved ones nourish you one last time. So, like, weird. Basically, Van will do anything to stay alive. And she says to Travis, let your brother save you. So Walter and Kevin run into each other, and Walter friggin' poisons Kevin and kills him with the same solution that Lottie wanted to put into the cups for each of the survivors to drink from to see who gets the phenobarbital solution. Walter has given Kevin the poison. It hasn't like kicked in yet. And Jeff tries to confess to Adam's murder. Kevin sees right through him. He knows that Shauna's the actual guilty one. But before he can arrest him or anything, Kevin like drops dead. I have to be honest, I wasn't happy to see this happen to Kevin. It's been 2 seasons, and I feel like Kevin is a really wonderful person. He loved Natalie exactly for who she was. But, and you know, he's just doing his job, and he wasn't a jerk about it. Like, it seems like he really, like, he cared about Callie. He cared about Jeff. He just wanted to bring Shauna to justice. But this is just another person in a long line of innocent people that the main 4 survivors have hurt. And honestly, like, Walter could have killed Matt Saracusa, but I feel like Kevin Tan would not have taken the bait to be a community hero and allowed that whole thing to happen. He would have pursued justice to the end. He is so much like that in that way. He really is her perfect counterpart, in my opinion. So Teen Shauna brings in the platter of meat for the group, and she has the heart in the middle of the tray, which she gives to Travis, and he takes a bite out of it, which a lot of them are kind of grossed out about. A couple of them stare like kind of enraptured with what's happening. And it kind of it reminds me of like some kind of warrior sort of scene. Like, it's so weird. I don't know what to make of it, but it's also a little bit of a throwback to the bear thing. And I think it was, in a weird way, sort of a sign of respect for Travis that this was his brother that they are consuming. The part that really broke my heart was Travis taking the little soapstone, or I think it's soapstone wolf that Javi originally carved for Shauna, putting it up on the mantle. Like, our little Javi, it is just so sad. And I think I've said this represents the end of innocence for the group, the death of innocence for the group. And Misty, again, the manipulative whatever that she is, forces Lottie to eat because she says your team needs you and you need to eat. So then there's a present day scene of Lottie getting ready for the hunt, and oh my gosh, the music that they chose for that is just perfect. It's the God is Alive, Magic is Afoot song. Oh man, it is wild. It is just it perfectly shows what Lottie's mental state is at the moment, like her fragmented mental state. It was a great song choice. I loved that. And it got me thinking, like, I thought there was something, like, you know, not right about Lottie, that we would find out that she really is, like, insidious or evil or whatever. There's something more insidious to the cult that she is running. I don't know. After considering her ending here and her ending in the team timeline, and thinking back to how she was at the very beginning of the season, in like 1998 or whenever they're rescued, right before she got electroshock therapy, this makes sense. Like, she really is just traumatized from everything that she was forced to do in the wilderness that the others manipulated her into doing. So Callie runs into Matt. He tries to hold her, but he gets a fake call from Walter posing as Kevin, and so he leaves. Also, Ty and Van freaking cancel the crisis team that Misty called for Lottie to get her help. And I feel like Ty was really manipulated into this by Van. Like, I don't even know what to make of how Van has behaved in the last little bit. But remember, I think I also said in my breakdown of the last episode that there was something kind of weird about her. Like, she had like a weird look on her face as she followed the girls out to the sharing shack. So, I don't know. So the present day timeline card draw starts with Van really spurring it on. She's like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this. And Ty's like, whoa, what's going on with you? Shauna eventually draws the Queen card. I'm really curious, why was Van so keen to get this going. If she believes in the wilderness like Lottie does, maybe she thinks her cancer could be cured with this sacrifice. So after Lottie draws the queen card, after Shauna draws the queen card, Lottie says you can submit or you can run, but you know what happens if you refuse to draw. Which is so interesting. It makes me wonder what does happen if you refuse to draw. I feel like you would probably just get that on the spot if you refuse to draw. So you have to participate in this game. So, and once Shauna draws, they all go straight to the hunt. They all take their masks and they all grab their weapons. It's left ambiguous as to whether the others are into it or not, like whether they're just playing along, like hoping the crisis team shows up for Lottie's sake, keeping an eye on what Lottie's doing, or whether they all just go back to wolf pack sort of mode like they did in the wilderness. It seems like once everyone puts on these masks and once they're all together, like something just takes them over. Not necessarily something supernatural, but some drive to hunt takes them over, and they're like whooping and yelling and stuff. It's kind of like So then meanwhile, Walter shows up where Syracusa is at Kevin Tan's car, and he takes Syracusa's gun, shoots Kevin in the trunk of the car a few times, just so super like whatever. And he says, I've got all this information, I could pin it on you, or I could pin it on Kevin. And if I pin it on Kevin, then you'll be like this community hero. And he's come up with a way to pin both Jessica Roberts and Adam Martin's murders on one of the officers. This I found to be a little bit of a stretch. I didn't love this storyline ending up like this. I thought for sure either Jeff would confess and he would be the one to go to jail, which would be kind of perfect because it would be another innocent person hurt by those four. And we've been seeing so much of that happen over this series. Seeing like the impact of these girls or these women's the impact of these women's selfish actions, right? I didn't buy the setup. Like, I wish we could have seen a little bit more of that, like him explaining his evil plan, kind of, and like detailing what he had on them. I just didn't love that part. So the women are still chasing Shauna, and Callie jumps out with a gun, shoots Lottie in the arm, and says, "Leave my mom alone." And honestly, so sweet. Like, I know that might seem weird, but just, yeah. And then seeing Shauna yell at Callie to put the gun down, trying to protect her. It's nice to see these two have this raw mother-daughter moment, if that makes sense. So Lottie says, like, this is your daughter? She's so powerful. Very interesting. Like, very interested to see what's going to happen with Callie in season 3. And in this scene, like I said before, Van says she's like this because of us. Like, a big theme in this show is the impact of the four survivors' actions on innocent people and just how they hurt so many people along the way just in the name of self-preservation. Yeah, poor Lottie. She's so different than I thought she would be when the idea of her was first introduced at the end of season 1. She's just a broken person. Like, a shell of a person, really. It's just amazing acting by Simone Kessel in this scene too. So Teen Van is about to tell a story to the group and about the wilderness, but Lottie interrupts and she ends up crowning Nat the Antler Queen. My thoughts on this, like this whole storytelling thing, it reminded me of Van telling a story at the fire right before the wolf attack. Seems like Van's storytelling always happens before something bad happens. And yeah, the whole crowning Nat leader. So I find that so interesting. If Nat is indeed the Antler Queen that we see in the pilot, then it makes sense why she carries such emotional baggage with her, right? And why she feels so guilty and can't forgive herself, because she is the reason why so many people died. It also makes sense why Ty said she does what she can for her, because she got them out of there. Like, Nat could have literally led them out of the wilderness and been the reason they survived. I always thought, Lottie was the antler queen and Nat somehow snapped everyone else out of it and led them out of that mindset. But the other way makes sense too. He sees all of this going on through the window and is disgusted. And he's also picking up some matches from there so that he can start a fire in the cave that he's going to be living in now. So that foreshadows what's going to happen later. Meanwhile, in the adult timeline, Lisa walks in on Nat snapping at Lottie and holds the whole group at gun. Nat sees Misty about to stab Lisa with the phenobarbital solution, and she jumps in front of the needle and takes it for Lisa. And it's this full circle moment of Nat finding redemption for what she did to Javi, letting Javi die in her place. She is not going to let Lisa die for her in this moment. We also get a flashback to the scene in the pilot where Misty is watching Nat at the party right before the flight. And so was this planned out from the very beginning, or was it convenient for the writers to plan it out this way? I was sort of wondering if Juliette Lewis wanted off of the season, because I've seen in some interviews that she wasn't really happy with the writing of her character. So I think it's kind of hard to say, but at first I thought for sure it was because she wanted off the show, but after watching again, it seems like it was planned. Like, it's sort of the perfect ending for Nat. And then she has that moment in the plane, which is like a flashback to when she saw her dad in the plane in the first season, who says, "It's been waiting for us." And in this scene, she has Javi on one side and Lottie on the other, two people that she feels most guilty about causing the death of Javi and causing the complete mental decay, the complete mental breakdown of Lottie. So I think it's like, after I watched a second time, I really think that Nat's death was kind of beautiful, kind of perfect. She got redemption in that moment. The only thing that would have made it perfect is if Travis had been there too, because he was the driving force behind her in season 1. Her teen self says, "This is exactly where we belong. We've been here for years." I feel like Nat has been dead inside for years, and now she's finally free. So in the teen timeline, the cabin burns down. Shauna is writing in her journal, and she's pissed that she was not chosen to be Antler Queen. And it's like, why? You don't really have leadership qualities. But it just goes back to her always feeling invisible, right? And always wanting recognition. Yeah, the cabin burns down. And like, I thought that the cabin would burn down at some point, just because in the pilot, it seemed like they'd been living in the elements. Like, they had way more furs. Misty's face looked completely chapped. Like, it looked like they had been spending a lot of time outdoors. So I expected that to happen at some point, but I thought it would be later on. And I thought it would be the reason they got rescued. And I also thought it'd be Nat that would burn it down. I thought they were going to split into like evil cannibals and good guys, which obviously is not what's happening. And I thought the good guys would burn down the cabin. But yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of what happened. Ben's sort of like a good guy at this point. He hasn't participated in murdering anyone until burning down the cabin full of girls. So many blurred lines in this show. So many questions I have for season 3. Where are the girls going to live now? I feel like they will probably live in the shell of the airplane because they were close to it in the pilot after the feast scene. So that would make sense to me. What does Lottie mean when she turns to Van and says, "You'll see, the wilderness is pleased with our sacrifice"? Is Van's cancer gone? Could Ben possibly still be alive in the adult timeline? I think he might be. He might be the big bad of season 3, and honestly, I would love that if he was trying to like hunt them down and make them pay for everything they did. But how could it be that that Ben was rescued at the same time as the girls? Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Oh, Lottie's maniacal laugh as the cabin is burning down. Like, it's just perfect. And it really mirrors her mental state in the adult timeline as well. Last question I have is, we've seen some notes about like the Parsippany poisoner. And a lot of people thought it was Misty. But I'm wondering, is it Walter? Like, he poisons Kevin, right? Could he be the Parsippany poisoner? Like, very interesting. So many questions for season 3 still. But anyways, I think that concludes my final breakdown of the season. I will probably be doing other videos, not on a weekly basis, but maybe on a monthly basis, because I do love creating Yellow Jackets content. I'm considering a comparison between Yellow Jackets and Lord of the Flies, Yellow Jackets and The Walking Dead, and just, I have other thoughts that I would like to record before season 3, whenever that happens. But thanks so much for being here and watching my videos this season. It's been a wild ride. The season has been so different from what I expected it to be after season 1. But it's been great, honestly. I really love the season. There were a couple little parts that I didn't love, but overall, season would have to be like an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Still one of my absolute favorite shows. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like my content. Watch my other Yellow Jackets videos, and I'll see you in the next video.